The council chamber of the Olarian Empire was a cathedral of steel and crystal. Towers of light refracted into countless angles from the translucent walls, casting prismatic patterns across the polished obsidian floor. Hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy had gathered to witness the summoning of the one called the Heir of Silence. I had been summoned here unexpectedly. My name, insignificant in most human records, was now chanted quietly in alien tongues that twisted around each other like living threads. My pulse thudded in my chest as I walked past rows of dignitaries, each draped in elaborate robes that shimmered like oil on water. I felt the weight of countless eyes on me, the collective intelligence of alien species probing for weakness, for the tiniest flicker of doubt. I had been told nothing of what was expected, only that I was to appear before the High Court of Olaria. And then she arrived. Her presence was not announced. There were no trumpets, no fanfare, no flaring of lights. One moment she was not there, and the next she sat beside me. The floor beneath her seemed to hum softly, though no vibration reached my feet. She was small and impossibly serene, her features delicate but commanding. Her eyes, liquid silver with flecks of violet, met mine for a single heartbeat, and something inside me steadied. A voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Don't look away." I tried to speak, but words failed. I had never felt such a stillness, such a gravity in silence, before. Around us, the court was murmuring. The alien delegates tilted their heads, their eyes narrowing as they noted her quiet confidence. I did not know her name, nor her origin, but I somehow knew she was not to be ignored. A tall figure stepped forward, the Chancellor of Olaria, a being whose translucent skin displayed a lattice of flowing circuits beneath. He was the only one permitted to speak first. His voice was calm, but edged with authority. "You are the one they call human, and you stand before the council to be judged. State your purpose." I swallowed and shook my head, unsure of what to say. How could I explain the whirlwind that had brought me here? The dreams of 1,000 stars, the strange transmission that had led me through wormholes I could barely comprehend? I opened my mouth and faltered. Then she reached out, her slender hand brushing the edge of my sleeve. The gesture was so simple, so unassuming, that the entire chamber fell silent. The hum beneath her feet grew louder, subtle but insistent. Every being in the room shifted, their curiosity sharpened into awe. She did not speak. She did not even glance at the Chancellor. Yet her presence alone, calm, immutable, commanded attention. The murmurs stopped. Even the most powerful delegates, beings capable of bending gravitational fields with thought, seemed compelled to pause, to recognize a force older and greater than politics, ambition, or fear. The Chancellor's voice faltered. Who are you?" She tilted her head ever so slightly toward him. No words passed her lips, yet in that moment, every delegate understood. Her silence spoke in a language older than their technology, a language that bypassed cognition and touched something deeper: respect, awe, submission. And then, slowly, deliberately, the entire court bowed. I stumbled back, utterly dumbfounded. My mind raced. How could this be? I thought I had been brought here to face judgment, perhaps even death. Yet here she was, and her mere presence had rendered the most formidable beings in the galaxy obedient. She leaned slightly toward me, and though no sound emerged, her gesture was unmistakable. Follow her lead. I swallowed my disbelief and mimicked her posture. As I knelt, my heartbeat echoed with an unfamiliar clarity. I realized then that I had been chosen, not by my strength, skill, or reputation, but by proximity to her. Whatever she was, she saw something in me. The Chancellor rose, his circuits flashing erratically. His voice was strained, almost pleading. This defies protocol. The air of silence is not human. You cannot. She raised a hand, a slow and deliberate movement. The moment she did, every holographic display in the chamber froze mid-animation. The charts of territorial expansion, the graphs of interstellar resource flows, even the ambient light beams of the crystal towers halted as though reality itself had paused to acknowledge her authority. The Chancellor fell silent. She then turned her gaze toward me, and I felt a warmth, a silent communication that bypassed spoken words. Do not fear. The burden is yours, but you are ready. And with that she stood, motionless for the briefest instant, yet carrying a weight that threatened to collapse galaxies under its inevitability. She moved to the center of the chamber and raised her arms. The air shimmered, bending and folding around her like liquid glass. Every delegate could feel the energy, a magnetic pull that was neither violent nor benevolent. It simply was. Then she spoke. The words were not spoken aloud. They resonated in my mind directly. Balance must be restored. The chaos sown by ambition will be undone. All shall serve the purpose that is just and true, and the one who walks with me shall lead. A shockwave of realization swept through the council. They understood, instantly, that the prophecy long whispered in Olarian archives had arrived. The human beside her, the unremarkable, unsuspecting, unprepared human, was the one chosen to bear the mantle of cosmic mediation. I had no idea how to respond. The weight of destiny pressed against my chest, and yet her calmness grounded me. I straightened slowly. I realized I was trembling, but the tremor felt right, as though it was the final adjustment before assuming a role I had never imagined. A delegate from the Croth sector, a massive creature of crystalline composition, stepped forward. Its voice was a resonance of chimes and grinding stones. If the human is chosen by the air of silence, shall the Croth submit to their guidance? She tilted her head. Again, silence. Yet the answer was unmistakable. Every being in the chamber felt it. Obedience, yes, but also trust. The Croth bowed. Then the next delegation. And the next. Within moments, the entire council, the full assembly of Olaria's power brokers, was kneeling before us. I dared to glance at her, and our eyes met. In that silent exchange, I understood a truth deeper than any philosophy I had studied, any star chart I had memorized. She had chosen me not because I was powerful, but because I was human. And my humanity, our capacity for empathy, for intuition, for mercy, was the key to restoring the fragile equilibrium of a galaxy on the brink of collapse. A low murmur rippled through the court. Some delegates, particularly those more rigid in their traditions, hesitated. They had known empires rise and fall, alliances broken, and wars waged over millennia. Could one human, literally one species unfamiliar with interstellar politics, hold sway over them? She seemed to anticipate the question, for she extended her hand toward me. I stepped forward, the entire chamber's eyes upon me, and took it. The touch was electric, grounding, like a gravitational anchor in the swirling storm of fate. Instantly, a projection appeared above us, an ancient map of the galaxy, rotating slowly. Lines of energy traced across star systems, highlighting zones of conflict, regions plagued by instability, sectors of abandoned technology. The energy lines converged on me as though marking a central nexus. Her silent voice echoed again. All roads converge. Your path begins here. I felt a swell of purpose I had never known. The court, once poised for judgment, now awaited instruction. I realized I had a choice: retreat into obscurity or step into the role she had silently bestowed upon me. I took a deep breath and raised my hand. "Order," I said, my voice quivering but carrying. "Let all disputes be held in council. Let those who have strayed find guidance, not punishment. Let the knowledge of every civilization be shared, so none may suffer from ignorance again." A tense silence followed. Then, slowly, the delegates began to nod, murmur in agreement, and finally bow again, not out of fear, but with understanding. The transformation was palpable. She smiled faintly at me. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it carried warmth and pride. I realized then that she had been my mentor from the very moment she chose to sit beside me. Every gesture, every silent command, had been a lesson in authority and humility, in the true essence of leadership. The Chancellor, who had once questioned my very presence, approached with cautious reverence. "Human, you understand what this means?" "Yes," I replied. "I understand that I am not alone, and that no matter the magnitude of the task, we begin together." She nodded, and the hum beneath her feet receded, leaving only a sense of calm certainty. The court rose in unison, this time not bowing, but standing with respect and purpose, ready to follow the path we would set. For the first time, I felt the weight of the galaxy on my shoulders, and it did not crush me. It steadied me. And then she was gone. Not abruptly, but as if she had never been there, save for the lingering aura of her presence. I turned to the council and said, "The air of silence walks with me, though unseen. Let her guidance inspire our choices." The delegates nodded, accepting not just my words, but the truth of what they implied. A new era had begun. I walked to the center of the chamber, alone now, and felt the energy of countless civilizations flowing toward me. I was human, yes, but in that instant, I was more than that. I was the chosen mediator, the bridge between species, the voice of balance. And somewhere, beyond the reach of my vision, she watched, silent as ever, her task complete for now. The court, once a place of judgment, became a place of unity. Where once fear and politics dictated the fates of billions, now reason, understanding, and mutual respect prevailed. And I, an ordinary human who had once lived a life of quiet obscurity, had become the catalyst for change, the one who had walked with her in silence, and through that silence, inspired a galaxy to bow not in fear, but in reverence for the promise of a new order. As the crystal towers of the chamber reflected the first rays of Olaria's twin suns, I realized one truth that would guide me forever. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words, and true power lies not in command, but in the quiet strength to lead by example. And in that silence, beside me, she had whispered a lesson that no being, human or alien, would ever forget. The council had risen in unity, their obedience no longer the reflex of fear, but the acknowledgement of something greater than themselves. And yet, as the delegates looked to me, I realized the magnitude of the responsibility that had just been laid upon my shoulders. I was still human, fallible, inexperienced, and fragile, but the choice of the air of silence had made me the nexus of an entire galaxy's future. I turned toward the empty space where she had vanished. The faint trace of her presence lingered, like the echo of a melody that had passed through a room and refused to leave. I understood then that her role was not to lead, but to guide, to awaken potential, to select the one capable of carrying the weight of a fractured galaxy. I addressed the council again, my voice stronger now, steadier. Delegates of Olaria and representatives of all allied sectors, today marks a new beginning. The conflicts that have divided us, the ambitions that have threatened us, the chaos that has cost countless lives, it ends here. Together, we will forge a council not of power, but of understanding, not of fear, but of collaboration. A ripple of agreement flowed through the assembly. Even the Croth, whose crystalline body usually radiated cold imperiousness, lowered its head in solemn acknowledgement. The Chancellor approached once more, eyes glowing with restrained awe. "Human, what you propose is unprecedented. Do you truly understand the scope of your pledge?" "I do," I replied. "And I do not do this alone. The air of silence walks with me, in spirit if not in form. Through her guidance, I will learn what it means to lead, to balance, and to unify. And through that unity, all of us, every being in this chamber and beyond, will find strength." It was then that the chamber itself seemed to acknowledge the declaration. Light cascaded across the crystalline walls in a symphony of color, shimmering patterns of energy weaving themselves like threads into a single, luminous tapestry. The projection above, the galactic map, brightened, and the chaotic lines of unrest smoothed into a harmonious lattice, connecting star systems with pathways of stability. I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. The task ahead was monumental, yet for the first time, I did not feel fear. I felt responsibility. I felt purpose. And I felt her presence, silent, steadfast, unwavering, reminding me that greatness was not measured in domination or conquest, but in the courage to act with integrity and compassion. Days passed within the council chamber, though the concept of time seemed altered in the presence of such immense power. I began to speak with delegates, to listen to their grievances, to mediate disputes that had festered for centuries. Each resolution, no matter how small, was a step toward harmony. With every conversation, I grew more confident, more attuned to the delicate balance of interstellar politics. And then, finally, the moment came when the Council convened a unified decision. The Olarian Empire would open its archives, share technology and knowledge, and dismantle systems built on coercion and fear. Every sector would contribute, every species would benefit, and every civilization would have a voice. In that moment, I understood something profound. The Heir of Silence had not simply chosen me to lead, she had chosen me to become the embodiment of potential. To inspire not through fear or authority, but through example. The delegates bowed once more, not as a gesture of submission, but as a symbol of commitment. And as they did, I felt a subtle shift beneath my feet, a gentle resonance that spoke of promise, of hope, of futures rewritten. I turned to look toward where she had appeared beside me, expecting to see her still, guiding silently. But the chamber was empty, and yet I felt her voice in my mind, soft but certain. The path is yours. Lead with courage. Trust in the silence. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. For the first time in my life, I felt fully aligned with my purpose. The galaxy was vast, chaotic, and unpredictable, but I would face it not with fear, but with resolve. The Heir of Silence had chosen wisely. Together, even if unseen, we would shape a new era. The suns of Olaria rose higher, casting brilliant beams through the crystal towers, reflecting across the polished obsidian floor. The light refracted into 1,000 directions, yet all paths seemed to converge upon me. I realized then that silence was not emptiness, but power, the quiet strength to inspire, to guide, and to unify. And in that silence, I felt her presence one final time, a whisper that transcended space and species. Well done. You are ready. The council had bowed, the galaxy had listened, and I had stepped forward. Not as a conqueror, not as a ruler, but as a mediator, a guide, a human chosen to walk beside the Heir of Silence. The era of fear was over. The era of understanding had begun. And as I stood at the center of the chamber, Alone yet accompanied by her enduring influence, I understood fully that destiny is not given, it is recognized. The court, once a place of judgment, had become a place of hope. The galaxy, once on the brink of collapse, now faced a future where even the smallest voice could resonate across the stars. And as the twin suns bathed the chamber in light, I whispered softly, not to the council, but to the universe itself. I will not fail. I will walk this path in silence, and through it, we will all rise. For in the quiet that followed, there was not fear. There was only power, only purpose, and only the infinite possibility of what a single human could achieve when chosen by the air of silence. The story had ended, not with an explosion or a battle, but with reverence, unity, and the unwavering knowledge that some silences speak louder than the roar of 1,000 civilizations. And somewhere beyond perception, she smiled.